Hey everybody, it's Party Elite here with another episode of Total Breakdown. Today we see a battle with some great back and forth as the Bretonnians of Rat Man take on the Norscans of Knightmare13 at Wyvern Lake. As always, if you'd like to see more Total Breakdown, make sure you let me know by hitting like and subscribe and leaving a comment down below. We've been, of course, with talk of composition and deployment, and there are some pretty interesting decisions being made on the battlefield today. Let's start with the Bretonnians, who are being led by a prophetess of beasts. Up front, we've got these 4 units of men-at-arms with shields, and they've got a paladin alongside a Grail Reliquae providing them some support. To either flank, we have these men-at-arms with pole arms here and here, and then we've got these 2 units of peasant bowmen with fire arrows. Not a bad idea at all. The fire arrows will be helpful against units that might have regeneration, a typical occurrence among the Norscans. And then right behind them, we've got these Beast Slayers of Baston, and then over here, we've got some Battle Pilgrims, a pair of them, I should say, and then a pair to the right over here as well, including the Holy Wardens of La Maison Tal. And we have another Grail Reliquae over here providing that support to these back lines. Meanwhile, off to the side over here, tucked away in the trees, we have only 2 units of cavalry. We've got the Knights of the Lionhearted as well as these Grail Knights over here. So bringing in some anti-large magical damage and some physical resistance as well from those Grail Knights. On the other side of the field, the Norscans are led by Throg over here. And up front, you can see we've got a line that consists of 2 units of Marauders with great weapons on either flank. And in the middle here, some Marauder Berserkers. Right behind them and on either flank, we've got these Norscan Ice Wolves, as well as these Norscan Warhounds, and to the side here as well, some Norscan Ice Wolves and some Norscan Warhounds. And the back here, brought up by these Marauder Spearmen, alongside these Marauder Spearmen over here, and a pair of Marauder Hunters with Javelins. So, of course, prepared for a lot of large enemy units, and we have the Shaman Sorcerer of Death on horseback as well, while if we pull back a little bit, you can see tucked away into the trees over here and over there, we've got some armored skin wolves, again, ready for the typical call of Bretonnians to bring in a lot of cavalry, so having a lot of anti-large capabilities, both in terms of infantry as well as large units themselves, to try and shut all that down. So let's see how this all breaks down as the Bretonnians push forth from their hiding place in the trees over here and try to, I think, engage outside of the trees, maybe over here, allowing the cavalry units over here to come in with a flanking opportunity. And you can see we've got most of the Marauders and all pushing forward over here, most of the Norscans pushing forward, but actually leaving the Skin Wolves back in the trees. A very good call over there. As you can see over here, we have all of these Grail Knights and the Knights of the Lionhearted pushing forth here, trying to take some damage into the Norscan Ice Wolves nice and early, and as they get just a little too close, you can see we've got these Skin Wolves back here activating and moving in the hopes of intercepting these Grail Knights and the Knights of the Lionhearted to shut them down. Meanwhile, the front lines are continuing to close gaps towards each other, as over here, these Norscan Warhounds and the Norscan Ice Wolves are not going to have a good time, and meanwhile, up front, you can see the fire arrows come in to cause some damage towards these Marauder Berserkers, who are able to close the lines into these men-at-arms, and the men-at-arms across the board up front are not going to have a good time. And take a look back here, we've got these Norscan Ice Wolves immediately giving up on the fight, and these Skin Wolves over here actually not diving into this engagement just yet, playing it very cautiously back there, as these Javelins up front provide some support to the front lines, and we've got these Marauder with great weapons able to come in from the flanks to try and shut down, or come in for rear charges, as you can see happening over here, but we've got these men-at-arms with pole arms pushing in to intercept, while over here we've got these men-at-arms with pole arms pushing in to intercept these Marauders with great weapons. So good thinking over there with these Marauders trying to come in from the flanks or chase after some of these range units, but unfortunately we've got some units held in reserve to intercept in case that exact same thing happens. And you can see all the way over here, we actually have the Marauder Spearmen finally pulling back to engage these Knights of the Lionhearted as well as the Grail Knights. We've got the Skin Wolves over here as well diving in. Again, they have physical resistance, but the Grail Knights, of course, have magical damage, and the Knights of the Lionhearted as well have magical damage, so it might not work out for these armored Skin Wolves. They might be in a bit of a trouble situation. Meanwhile, in the center here, you can see we get Flock of Doom activated to try and turn the tide in the central situation, but you can see with Throg diving in here, bringing in Fight or Die, as well as the Wintertooth Crown. He's not about to give up on the fight, and he's having an absolute field day bashing these men-at-arms, tearing them apart, just absolutely squashing them with their hammers. And at the same time, the Grail Reliquae here trying to get some work done. But what is a Grail Reliquae to do against a beast such as Throg over here, and the Paladin as well, trying to get some damage. And again, the Paladin is anti-large, and he is himself on foot as well, so he's hoping to get some work into Throg, who is, again, also anti-large and armor-piercing. And of course, we have all of these fire arrows coming in as well to provide some support, but you can see the men-at-arms across that front line there just giving up on the fight. They don't really want to stick around for very long. And back here as well, you can see we've got these Battle Pilgrims now diving in to provide some support against these Marauder with great weapons. To the left, they're coming out on top quite handily, and to the right over here, it's just going to be a matter of time, while in the center, again, we get a little bit of magical support, a nice big bombardment of rocks coming in to provide some assistance, while to the side over here, you can see we actually have the Knights of the Lionhearted as well as the Grail Knights here falling apart. The Knights of the Lionhearted get hit by the Fate of Buna, a beautiful cast there, and we've got these Skin Wolves atop them. We also have all of these Javelins now, anti-large ammunition coming in from range, firing into these Knights of the Lionhearted, and those Knights of the Lionhearted are about to give up on the fight. Beautiful awareness there, great use of all of this anti-large capability, just turning around, focusing down, and unfortunately the Bretonnians really should have pulled away. They're clearly not paying attention to the front line as well as these back lines. These cavalry units have stayed engaged for far too long anyway. They should have pulled away and come back for some rear charges on the front lines or something, but unfortunately they are just falling apart off in the distance over there. While up front as well, you can see the front lines just not having a good time at all. That right flank has more or less completely fallen apart. The center has fallen apart. It's just the paladin holding the center over there. Well, over here you can see these men-at-arms as well, giving up on the fight, completely routing as these men-at-arms with shields are trying to hold the line against these marauders. But we've got these marauder spearmen coming in, able to push in, maybe get a rear charge into these men-at-arms over here. But that left flank has been won by the Bretonnians as they scare off these marauder with great weapons over there. And in the center, you can see we actually get the use of Soul Blight, reducing armor and allowing these marauder great weapons to maybe turn the tide of battle on that left flank, and doing so quite quickly. Those marauders with great weapons. And over here as well, you can see the marauder spearmen dive into the beast slayers of Baston, as well as the Grail Relic over here. They're all affected by Soul Blight, and in the response, we actually get more magic coming in. Flock of Doom hits this spot once more, trying to cause some damage to these marauders with great weapons. These marauder spearmen, as well as Throg, but Throg manages to get out of that radius and chases after the paladin to finish that paladin off, who is now routing, giving up on the fight. And on the topic of routing, you can see over here we have the Grail Knights giving up on the fight, and the Knights of the Lionhearted as well had to pull back into safety, ultimately able to survive. But the Skin Wolves, as well as some of these Warhounds and the marauder spearmen, chasing them off the field, hoping to get rid of that cavalry support if possible right now. You can see over here we've got these marauders with their great weapons giving up on the fight, or very close to giving up on the fight, while over here Throg vomits a little bit right onto these men-at-arms with polearms, as well as these men-at-arms, or these battle pilgrims I should say, getting a touch of damage in there. Not a bad call at all. Of course the ability is there, it's not going to use any winds of magic or anything, might as well use it. Meanwhile, you can see over here we actually have these men-at-arms with shields giving up on the fight, while now these Norscan Warhounds find this gap over here, looking for an opportunity to dive in, maybe shut down some of this range support, maybe get a nice rear charge into these beast slayers of Baston, deciding to go in towards these peasant bowmen over here, shut them down once and for all. In comes a Flock of Doom, but the Norscan Warhounds are able to just dodge that. Of course, they dive right into these peasant bowmen, and those peasant bowmen do not stand a chance. While over here you can see these Skin Wolves finally activated, moved into these peasant bowmen, shutting them down once and for all, and we have these men-at-arms with polearms pushing in to respond to try and shut down those Skin Wolves. While over here you can see we actually get some magical support. Once again, Prophetess of Beasts hit by Spirit Leech, this time trying to get rid of Bretonnian leadership if possible, and that Prophetess needs to get out of this situation. She's not having a good time. She is falling apart. Meanwhile, back here you can see we've got these Marauder Hunters with their javelins pushing forward to try and provide some assistance, feeling like they've taken care of the cavalry. But take a look at that. We've got the Knights of the Lionhearted still willing to fight, pulling back over here, trying to provide some assistance. And take a look as well at the balance of power. The Norscans are coming out on top rather handily over here. The Bretonnians are barely hanging on for dear life as Throg over here is engaged against the Grail Reliquae, some of these battle pilgrims, as well as the beast slayers of Baston. But nobody from the Bretonnians is having a good time. Throg, an absolute field day for him, popping the Wintertooth Crown once more, ensuring that his morale stays up. He is completely unbreakable, as over here the Knights of the Lionhearted get a nice rear charge into these Marauder Hunters, shutting them down, getting a fair bit of morale damage, enough to actually get them to rout. And meanwhile, you can see Flock of Doom comes in as well to try and cause some damage to these Marauder Hunters, as well as these Battle Pilgrims are able to close the gap and shut down that range support once and for all, as again we have these Knights of the Lionhearted pushing in for a rear charge as well. So great job over there, seeing the opportunity, diving into these exposed Marauder Hunters with javelins, shutting them down once and for all, while back here you can see we've got these men-at-arms with polearms chasing after these Skin Wolves over here, trying to shut them down, making sure that this cavalry is not free to come out from multiple sides. But the Skin Wolves go in with their slam dunk charges, tearing the men-at-arms with polearms apart. They were not braced, they were not prepared. They are taking so much damage, and they're almost instantaneously willing to give up on the fight. Their eagerness drops from eager to confident, and slowly it's going to drop to wavering as well. They're not going to have a good time in this engagement, but of course they are able to get some support from some of these polearms nearby. If they turn around and provide some support, if they're able to disengage from these Norscan Ice Wolves, the situation might be different, but unfortunately it's not. The men-at-arms with polearms completely give up on the fight, while back here you can see we actually have the Knights of the Lionhearted chasing after the Shaman Sorcerer of Death, hoping to shut that magical support down once and for all, while over here Throg continues to beat away at all of these Bretonnians that surround him, trying to get rid of the Grail Reliquae and that support that the Grail Reliquae brings. While back here you can see we actually get the Knights of the Lionhearted hit by Spirit Leech to cause some damage over there. A Fate of Buna might have actually finished them off, but going with the Spirit Leech instead, causing a touch of damage, hoping to come out on top over there, while over here Throg, fully surrounded, is taking a fair bit of hurt, taking a fair bit of damage, and the Prophetess of Beasts here as well, needing an opportunity to get involved with some magical support. As back here you can see these Skin Wolves dive in with a rear charge into the Beast Slayers of Baston, hoping to finish them off. They come in alongside the Norscan Ice Wolves as well, getting a fair bit of damage in there, but the Beast Slayers are just barely able to hang on, while over here you can see we get these Warhounds coming in for a rear charge into these Battle Pilgrims, the Skin Wolves as well, trying to take care of these Battle Pilgrims off to the side over there. These Marauder Hunters with their javelins are staying back for far too long. They need to push forth and provide some support to Throg in a very precarious situation now. He does not have his crown, he does not have his unbreakable trait, so he is quite low on morale right now. He is shaken, surrounded by these anti-large individuals. We've got the Grail Relicade there as well, just kicking and pushing away at Throg, and Throg is very close to giving up on the fight. Is back here. You can see we've got these men-at-arms with polearms looking for an opportunity to get involved, maybe pushing over here to the side to shut down these Skin Wolves, prevent their point of entry from this right flank over here. As you can see, we've got these Skin Wolves over here giving up on the fight. We've got these Norscan Ice Wolves as well giving up on the fight, and we have Throg very close to giving up on the fight, but in comes the Wintertooth Crown just in time, making him unbreakable once more, and again he's going to continue bashing skulls in the circle around him, while back here you can see we have the Knights of the Lionhearted shutting down these Marauder Hunters who for far too long just sat back there and did nothing. So very wasted there. They should have run in, but instead they stood still, and they were just looking pretty, like I like to say. Turning around now to fire away at some of these Knights of the Lionhearted and hoping to scare them off, while over here Throg as well, as you can see, as the Wintertooth Crown wears off, willing to rout immediately. Now over here you can see we've got the Marauder Spearmen pushing in alongside these Skin Wolves who are armored, trying to take care of these men-at-arms with polearms, but now all of these units can turn around and provide some support against this right flank aggression. Is back here as well. You can see both of these Marauder Hunters with javelins once more made to rout these Knights of the Lionhearted, just barely hanging on to life. They've got nearly 100 kills on them. Maybe another rear charge somewhere will cap that to 100 kills. There you have it, 103 kills now, and you can see over here we've got these Warhounds as well as these Marauders with their great weapons pushing in towards these Battle Pilgrims to shut them down before they're able to push in to provide support, but this battle is nearly done. Over here the Skin Wolves are giving up on the fight. Over here the Grail Relicade, the Holy Wardens of La Maison Tal, the Men-at-Arms with polearms, as well as these Battle Pilgrims over here just chopping away at the Marauder Spearmen, the Prophetess of Beasts as well, keeping a safe distance from the front line. No need to get engaged right now, while back here you can see Throg actually gets hit by these Knights of the Lionhearted. In come the Men-at-Arms, in come the Beastlers of Baston as well, and trying to get a nice rear charge into Throg, who's already giving up on the fight, but if he can die, if he dies just like he did, that might be the end of the battle. In come these Norscan Skin Wolves for another charge into the sides and backs of these Beastlers of Baston, as well as the Knights of the Lionhearted, but with leadership gone, with numbers dwindled, the Norscans are willing to give up on the fight as the Bretonnians pursue these Marauders here and there, slay these Skin Wolves back over here, and chase units off the edge of the field. A Pyrrhic victory for the Bretonnians. There were certainly mistakes on both sides of the battlefield, but the first one, leaving 2 cavalry units engaged with Norscan anti-cavalry until they were made to rout, was perhaps the biggest. The Norscans were able to establish a great advantage early on between that and cutting through the front line of men-at-arms. The Battle Pilgrims did a lot of work for Bretonnia, however, and when the Knights of the Lionhearted came back into the fight, there was a lot more care put into how they were utilized. Ultimately, a near loss was turned into a Bretonnian victory. As always, make sure you subscribe to this channel for more Total War content and keep sending in those battle replays. I do think it's one of the best ways to learn, and it's always nice to highlight such amazing battles from the community. I'd also like to thank all of my patrons for supporting the channel on a month-to-month basis, making a huge difference keeping us alive and running smoothly. Thank you all very much for watching. I'll see you on the battlefield.